Well, I guess you can say Joe Biden is dealing with his first misstep as U.S. president-elect. He is now in a walking cast after hurting his ankle and fracturing his foot. Now, Biden was playing with his dog Major yesterday when he took a fall. He then went to a specialist in the afternoon and was videotaped leaving later in the evening. Biden is expected to need the walking cast for the next several weeks. Now, that said, Joe Biden is still striding ahead with his transition, his team announcing choices for key economic and communication roles. Our senior Washington editor is Lindsay Duncombe. She joins us right now in Washington with more on this. So, Lindsay, nice to see you. So talk to us about Biden's choices here, because his team is framing his picks as history. What kind of message is he trying to send?
Well, I guess it goes down to that old phrase, dance with the ones that brung ya, because certainly in the way that the transition team is framing these choices, it is very much an acknowledgement of the women and people of color that were part of the key demographics that brought this 78-year-old white man to the Oval Office in the election. So as the news release went out about the communications team, it was touted as being historic, with all of the members of that team being women. And Canadians may recognize some of the faces on that team, including Kate Bedingfield, who is the person who has been a spokesperson for Biden during the campaign, and then the press secretary, which is really the face of the administration, is going to be Jen Psaki. And both of these women have their in common the long-standing work with Joe Biden, as well as ties to the Obama administration. Interestingly, Simone Sanders, who's someone who has done a lot of the cable routine for people who have been watching this election very closely, she came to the Biden campaign from the Bernie Sanders campaign, so a progressive voice, an African-American voice, a black woman. She will be the press secretary for Vice President-elect Kamala Harris. And then when it comes to those economic announcements, these are expected to come sometime this week, perhaps as early as today, but we're also seeing some of those same demographic signals. Neera Tanden is reportedly going to be the person who has the big job of heading the Office of Management and Budget. She is a woman of color. She is of Indian descent. And then when it comes to other key roles, at least two of the top economic advisors we expect to be announced are black. Now, there had been some criticism last week. Remember how we saw the national security and foreign policy advisors come up, as some African-American black politicians were concerned that there was not enough representation. So it'll be interesting to see how these choices, as they roll out this week, respond to those critics from within the Democrats' own party.
Okay, speaking of critics, talk to us about Republicans. What's their reaction to this?
Well, Donald Trump's own current press secretary, Kayleigh McEnany, pushed back against the notion that all of these female communication officials are unprecedented and historic, noting that there are several women in the Trump administration in communications roles. She blames the framing here on the media, tweeting, "The completely discredited Washington Post once again reveals their blinding propagandist fake news proclivities." And there's also been pushback against the idea that Tanden would be the choice for that big job at OMB. One of the key advisors to one of the top Republican senators has said that this is a woman who has long criticized those very senators that will be necessary to vote for her to be confirmed. And she also has ties to the Clintons, so that doesn't go over well with Republicans. So even in this transition period, perhaps most in this transition period, these deep American divisions remain.
Okay, Lindsay, thank you. Lindsay Duncombe, our senior Washington editor.